If you've ever wanted to take your hymn playing and make it sound like a pro gospel piano player, then this lesson is for you. And you can do it simply with one technique that I'm going to show you today. And that technique is a walking bass line. And if you will apply this to hymns, it'll give it that gospel flair. It'll give it a lot of excitement and forward momentum. And it's a simple technique that you can add to your left hand and it'll really take your hymn playing up a level. I'm going to demonstrate this in the hymn And Can It Be, and I'm going to show you this page right out of the hymn book, and I've written the chords above each measure, and this song is written in the key of G. So in the key of G we have all white notes except for the F. The F is played sharp, and so we use these notes: G, A, B, C, D, E, and F sharp. These are the notes we'll play except in the case of an accidental, and in this song there is one accidental, which means a note that doesn't fit in this key right here. And the accidental we'll come across is the C sharp. So occasionally in this song the C will be played sharp. But other than that, we're in the key of G, and the chords in the key of G are the G chord, G, B, and D, the C chord, C, E, and G, and the D chord, D, F sharp, and A. So these are the three major chords in the key of G, and there are other chords. There's the minor chords like the 2, A minor, and the B minor, and E minor. But we'll only need the three major chords in this song. So G, G, B, and D, which is the 1 chord, C, C, E, and G, which is the 4 chord, and D, which is the D, F sharp, and A, which is the 5 chord. And also we'll use the 5-7, D, F sharp, A, and C. The 5-7 is that dissonant sound that leads us back strongly to the 1 chord. Now, using that C sharp accidental, we'll also have a borrowed chord. We're going to use the A chord in a few spots in this song. A, C sharp, and E. So those are the only 4 chords you need to know to be able to play And Can It Be. So if you take a look here at the first line, you can see that I have the chords written above each measure. And for the most part, it's 1 chord per measure, but every once in a while we'll have 2 chords per measure. So the first measure is all G chord, and the second measure is G chord. But if you see that third measure, we've got the C chord for 2 beats, then the D7 for 2 beats, and then back to the G chord for the fourth measure. And so if you were to play this in a simple way, you were to read the top line of the music, which is the melody. This is the part that we would sing. If I were to say sing And Can It Be, well, that's the recognizable part of the song. That's the melody, and that's always the top line, the top notes of the hymn notation. It's the soprano note, and it's the melody of the song. And so a simple way to play this would be to play those chords that I've written above each measure as you play the melody. So just picking out that top note of the music and play the chord that is written above the measure. Now that's a very basic way to start to learn any hymn, and that's a good foundation to start and then to build upon. And as you know, if you watch my videos, I always start there, and then we start to build up the right hand and play more notes in the right hand. And then we take the left hand and start to play octaves or left hand patterns. But what I'm going to show you today is a left-hand pattern known as a walking bass line. And this is how this would sound if you were to play this song and implement this technique, the walking bass line. So as you can see, it gives it a great sound, sounds like gospel piano, and it really gives it a lot of forward momentum, and it really sounds like a advanced approach to this song, because now everything is moving and leading somewhere, driven by that left hand engine that we're using to drive the song forward. So as far as a walking bass line, let me go ahead and bring this up. You can think of the walking bass line very simply in just a couple different ideas here. And so the first way we can think of this in the left hand is what we call static walk, and that's when you are just you're staying on the same chord and you're just playing a left hand pattern in a walking bass style to accompany one chord. So the way we would do this on a G chord, as you can see right there in the lesson sheet, it says static walk, and we're going to use the G. Now I've notated this in an easy to read range. So this is the note that's on the paper, but notice it's to be played 8 notes lower. So a walking bass line just sounds great way down here. So you want to play down in this range as much as you can. Once you get up here, you kind of lose the effect. So just hanging out down here for your walking bass line. And so for any chord, for the G, D, C, or A chord, you want to use the 1, 3, and 5. Those are just the notes of the chord. In the G chord, the G is the 1, the D is the 3, and the 5 note is the D. And so we want to use those, and that's 3 notes. And so that'll give us 3 beats. And so what I've done is I use all those notes, and I use the E, which we call the 6 of the chord, 1, 3, 5, 6, to create a walking bass pattern that'll occupy 4 beats. G, B, D, E. You count it 1, 2, 3, 4. So I can apply this to any chord and just play it through the measure that has that chord, like the first measure of And Can It Be. Let me go back to that. The very first measure is all G chord, so I can play the melody with my right hand as I play this walking bass line. Now I go to the C chord. So if I were to use the same pattern, here's my C chord, C, E, and G. The C is the 1 of the C chord, the E is the 3 of the C chord, and the G is the 5 of the C chord. And the 6 would be the note above the 5, that's this A. So I'd use this pattern right here. C, E, G, A. Now, what happens here? Because the C chord only lasts 2 beats. Well, all you do is you take your pattern and cut it in half. So my pattern would be C, E, G, A on the 1, 2, 3, 4 beats. So I would just play the notes that go on 1 and 2. 1, 2. And then the chord switches to D, as you can see right here. The chord switches to a D7, so I would play the beginning of that pattern. And then I go to the G. And when you do that, you'll get this great climb. It would sound like this. So that's one approach to a walking bass line, but there are several others, and these incorporate the idea of moving to a chord, and this is what gives the walking bass line that forward momentum, because we use the walking bass line to lead into the next chord. And so there's some real simple ways to do this, especially in 4/4 time walking to our 3 major chords, the G, C, from the G to the C, or from the G to the D, or from the D back to the G, so on and so forth. So if we were going to walk from the 1 chord to the 5 chord, which would be walking from G, the G chord, to the D chord. It's a real easy way to do that. We just walk up note by note. G, A, B, C, D. Then we land on that D for the 5 chord. And you can do this in reverse to get to the 1 chord, from the 5 chord to the 1 chord. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So this happens in the chorus of And Can It Be? I'll show you. If you get down here to the chorus, you can see it's kind of this chorus section. Right here, when we're singing Amazing Love, so amazing is on the G chord, love is on the D chord. So it would be real easy to go. And then we get to this part, How Can It Be? We can walk back down to this from this D chord. So that's a real simple way to walk to and from the 5 chord or to the 1 chord. And then there's another variation that I like to do, and this is going to sound much more like a walking bass line. Doing it the way I just showed you, where you just step up the notes up to the 5 or down to the 1. It's fine to do it that way, but it's also a very basic way. So another great way to do it, and this is my favorite way to do it, is to play this walking bass up to the 5. G, B, C, C sharp to that D, which is the 5 chord. And so I love to do it this way. Notice how this sounds on the same section. So you notice it's got a much more gospel sound to it when we add that, we skip that A and go G, B, C, C sharp, D. Now, you can use this same idea to go up to the 4 chord, but notice the 4 chord is only 4 notes away. So it wouldn't work to fill in every beat. 1, 2, 3, 4, and we've got an extra beat, but we're already on the C. So the way I do this is I add in a chromatic note. So I go G, A sharp, B, C. We get that chromatic movement, which again gives it that gospel sound. So G, A sharp, B, C, and there's the C chord. So this happens in And Can It Be? In the end of the chorus, we get to this is almost the very end of the song, that Thou My God right there. So you see we're going from this G chord here to this right here, which is a C chord. So we could do it there. Now there's another way to walk. There's another way to walk to the 5 chord, and that's by going down. And so notice how we can do this when we walk down to the 5 chord. Again, when we walk down from the 1 chord, which is the G, down to the D, notice it's only 3 notes away. So we've got that same, we're going to use that same concept that we did to walk up to the 4 chord. When we walk down to the 5 chord, we need to add a chromatic note to fill up all the beats. So notice what I've notated here: G, F sharp, E, E flat. That's a great way to walk into the 5 chord, to walk down. And then you can do the same thing walking down to the 4 chord. Now when you walk down to the 4 chord, we walk down from the 1 chord, which is G, down to the 4 chord, which is C. That is exactly a 4-note walk. 1, 2, 3, 4, and then there's the C. So we can just do that on every beat to get into the 4 chord. 1, 2, 3, 4, and there we are at the 4 chord. Now I like to do this also to add some gospel sound to it. I like to play I don't play the F sharp. I play it natural. And that sounds good because it kind of hints at a G dominant chord, which would lead to a C. If we were in the key of C, the F would be natural. And although we're not in the key of C, since we're going to a C chord, we can hint at the key of C by getting that F natural in there, and it just sounds really good. It sounds like a gospel piano. Now, all of these that I've just showed you can be modified into octave walks by just adding an eighth note octave interval. And this really is nice to do it that way. And so notice I am swinging the eighth notes. Now, if you've never heard that before, you've never had to practice that way, swinging means to play the eighth notes in an uneven way, where the first one is longer than the second one. Long, short, long, short, long, short, long, short, long. And again, this is just another part of that gospel style where we swing the eighth notes. It'll really give this walking bass line a really good groove when you start to when you can swing those eighth notes. So that is one reason to go ahead and work eighth notes into your walking bass lines if you're able to, so that you can get that swung eighth note effect. If I'm only doing quarter notes, I don't get any swing in my left hand. But you can accommodate for that in the right hand. So even if I'm doing quarter notes in the left hand, I can swing the eighth notes in the right hand. But if you can work in these eighth notes in the left hand as well, it just gives that walking bass line a lot more forward momentum and much more groove to it. So all of these that I just showed you, you can change instead of just playing these simple quarter note walks. You can change them to this octave modification as is notated here. But there's also another way you can modify all of these, and that is by adding an eighth note. So take a look at this one right here. This is actually the same. If you were to ignore this eighth note right here, this G on this eighth note right here, just ignore that. You'll notice that it is the same as this right here. G, B, D, E. G, B, D, E. So what we've done is we've added an eighth note to give it that swing feel. 1, 2, 3, and 4. And all I'm doing is I'm rocking back to the root on the and in between one of those notes. And you can actually do it between any of those notes. Watch how it can sound on the others. So that I'm rocking back to the root after the B. Now if I were to do it after the E, watch. But this modification is one of my favorites, to just put it there on the and of the 3. 1, 2, 3, and 4. 1, 2, 3, and 4. And so all of these walks that I showed you can be modified in that way by just on the and of 3, rock back to the root of the chord. So if I'm walking up to the 5 chord, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. 1, I'm playing the G on the 1 beat, A on the 2, then B on the 3, and then I'm going to rock to the G on the and of the 3, and then come up to the C on the 4, and then I'm in my 5 chord. And then of course, with the other walk up to the 5 I showed you, G, B, C, C sharp, D, same thing. In between the 3rd beat and the 4th beat, rock to the root. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. And of course it applies walking up to the 4th or down to the 4th. Same thing. You can add in that 8th note in between the 3rd and 4th beat by rocking to the root. Now if we were to do this to the other chords, just, if I'm on a D, and I'm going to play my static bass walk, 1, 3, 5, 6. Then I would just do 1, 2, 3, 4. This is the simple one, all quarter notes. So I'm going to put the eighth note in between the third and fourth beat. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, and 4. And again, that eighth note rocks to the root. That's the D. 1, 2, 3, D on the and then up to my 6. So you can see here notated, I've got the walk down to the fourth, also with the added eighth note. 1, 2, 3, 4. So in this case, we're rocking back up to the root. Since we're walking down, we're rocking up to the root. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. Same thing, walking down to the 4 chord. Again, with that F natural, I do it 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. So to demonstrate this in the song, say if we're going in this measure right here, measure 25, we're singing Amazing Love, we would play Amazing Love, Amazing Love, how can it be? That's how that would sound, adding in those eighth notes in between the third and fourth beat. Now the last thing I was going to mention is this pattern right here, which is a pattern that can lead to any chord. Walk to any chord. So I've showed you how to get to the one, from the 1 to the 4, or from the 1 to the 5, going up or down with different gospel sounding walks. But say you've got a chord that's like the 6 chord or the 2 chord, which happens a lot, a chord that is not the 4 or the 5. Well, this pattern right here can be used to get to any chord, including the 4 or 5, the 6, or even if it's a borrowed chord, a chord that doesn't even belong in the key. The idea is to use root, 5, root, and then a passing tone. So root of the chord, say if it's a G chord, it would be G, the 5th of the chord is the D, D, and then the root again, an octave up. So that's my pattern, and then when I get to here, that's all quarter notes, 1, 2, 3. Now I'm going to use a passing tone to get to wherever I need to go. Say I want to get to, as is notated here, I'm going to use a passing tone to get to the E, which is the 6 minor, right? E minor. So say I need to get to the E minor. So I'm just going to use my pattern here, root, 5, root, and then I'm going to use a passing tone to get to the E. So just pick a neighbor tone of the E. So it could be this E flat, or it could be this F. They're both neighbor tones, a half step away. So it'll sound really pleasant to the ear to move into the target chord by a half step. So you can use that to get to any chord. Just use a neighboring tone after we do 1, 2, 3, whatever chord it is. Say I want to get to a B chord. Use a neighboring tone, B flat on the 4th beat. Now you can also modify this by adding in a swing note, an 8th note. So you can go root, 5th, root, then go to the root again as an 8th note, and then your neighbor tone as another 8th note. This would be on the and of 4 to lead into your next chord. So it would sound like this: 1, 2, 3, 4, and 1, 2, 3. I love to do it that way because it gets that neighbor tone just right on the and it just goes right in. But sounds like an upright bass that a jazz player might be playing the bass line on. So now I'm going to go through this song, And Can It Be, and I'm going to quickly demonstrate a few places where you can add these in, and then I challenge you to go ahead and get this. I'm going to make this available to you for free. Go ahead and grab this hymn book page with the chords in it, and you practice adding in these walks in different places, going from the 1 to the 4, from the 1 to the 5, or within the chord, as well as the borrowed chord, which is the A, which is where you might have to use that passing tone to get to the A major, which I'll show you here in just a moment. So looking at the very beginning of the song, as you can see, the first 2 measures is a G chord, and so we can use one of our static walks. So let's try just this simple single note, but with this swung 8th note between the 3rd and 4th beat, this pattern right here. So we could play it like this: 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. Now on the second measure, we can go ahead and use our walk up to the 4. So we do the first measure, 1, 2, 3, 4. Now we're going to walk up to the 4. Let's grab that G again. 1, 2, 3, and 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now, when I walk up to the 4, remember we have the 4 chord for 2 beats, so we get this pattern, and then the 5 chord for 2 beats. So then we can use the G here, because we're kind of leading into this G here. But notice we're kind of getting high for a walking bass line. So what you can do is you can do your pattern in reverse. So when I get to this G, instead of coming up here, I'm going to go down this way. But we're going to do that, think of it in reverse. This would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. So that'd be G, down to E, down to D, down to B, and then we're down to the low G. So we're staying in that bass range. And then we would still rock to the root on the and of the 3. So 1, 2, then we're on this D on the 3 beat, 3, we rock up to the G on the and then play the B on the 4, and then we're back to the root there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. And then we're back to the G chord, but we're going to walk into a C chord again, so we can use that walk up to the 4 to get to this C chord right here. 1, 2, 3, 4. So those 2 B's come together for the melody. Then we're on the C chord. Now again, it's the C chord for 2 beats and it's the D chord for 2 beats. But what's happening here is there is actually some interesting bass movement, and so we've already got a built-in walking bass line in some of these measures. So I would go ahead and follow this bass line movement. Now we're an octave lower, but we'll play this C right here, and then we'll come up and play this D, C, B. Then this F sharp to G, and that leads us right into this A for our borrowed chord. This is the A chord. It's actually a D over A here, and then an A7 right here. So what I always try to do is I try to follow the bass line that's written in the hymn book. Now you can change it, and if you want to just stick with the bass line pattern that we've already established, that'd be no problem. But what I like to do is try to follow that bass line. We've already got that built-in bass line movement that I think it's really good to go ahead and honor or follow. So we would get there, we walk up, starting right here, we walk up into the 4 chord again, but then we're going to revert from our bass line, and we're going to follow this bass line down here. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now here's the 4 chord. My left hand is doing the same pattern as before until I get to here. I'm going to go to that D down here, and then follow the bass line. So now we're on this A right here. We're going to go a D chord up here. It's kind of like an A suspended. A D chord up here, D over A. Then we go to this A chord, A7, and then into this D. So this is one way you can walk a bass line in a very simple way that I didn't mention in the previous section. You can just go up a triad, up and then back down, and that's 4 notes. A, C sharp, E, C sharp. So we can do that here. Now you can also add in your pattern we were doing before. We can use the passing note pattern, root, 5th, root, neighbor tone to get in that D. So all those are options, but what I'm going to do here is something real simple. Just up and down the triad. 1, 2, 3, 4. That gives me this leading tone into this D. Now we've got a whole measure of D here, so what we'll do is we'll use our static pattern, the 1, 3, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4. We come into D here, but we're going to go from the D to the G, so we can use this opportunity to walk into the G. Now, also, I will point out that the bass note stays on a D, so if you want to follow the bass, you would just stay on the D there, but you could walk into that G, or you can stay on the D, which would just be another static pattern. Now when we get to this measure, we can follow the bass line. It's a B down here. Now I will say, here in following the bass line, you can also add in a nice walking bass line. You can walk from this B down to this G. So B, A, G, and then we can use a neighbor tone to get into this D. So I go G, then C sharp, then rock down to the G again, into that D for the 5 chord. So it would sound like this. So when we get to that D there, we can continue our static pattern. But when we get to this part right here, notice in our static pattern, the note on the 4th beat is this B, and that's also what's happening in the bass down here. So that really works out nice because the next chord is a C, so we're using this B to lead by a half step into the 4 chord. So notice how this will sound. Really pretty. So I would encourage you to do that, following the bass line to get to this 4 chord from the D. 2, 3, hit that B, and then we get into this. Of course, I drop down to the C down here to stay in the bass range, but you can invert the pattern and continue on that way, following the bass line, using these different walks into our chord. Now, there's one more I wanted to show you in the chorus right here. So this is a great opportunity to do that walk into the 5 chord that I told you is my favorite to do. The 1, 3, 4, sharp 4, D, 5, 1. So from G to D would be G, B, C, C sharp, D. So we get down here into this chorus section. We're singing Amazing Love, and we could do that down here. So that's really a great way to do it right there, especially since we're building to a climax and we've got this great climb into the 5 chord. And then, of course, there's many opportunities here. We got this 4 chord right here, which we can use. We can walk back up into the 5 chord. Now at the end, we've got a great opportunity to walk into that 4 chord. So right here, we're on the 1 chord, and I'm going to since I'm at the end and we're kind of building the song, I've switched to my octaves. Now I'm doing my rocking octaves, and I get to this part right here, that thou my God. So God right there, then I rock to the G, and then I come to this B. So I go G to B right here because I'm going to lead into this C. There I am on the C, but now I'm going to walk chromatically into the D. And that also right there is something that is really effective, but is overlooked because it's so simple. Just to rock your octave on the same note. There is so much mileage you can get out of that very simple concept right there. Just octaves, rocking on the octave. I can get away playing a whole song with no left-hand patterns, no fancy chords, and just rocking on an octave because it's very effective, especially when you can do it in a rhythmic way. And so when I get to the end, instead of doing a walking bass into the one chord or some walking pattern, I kind of depart from that for some variation, and I get to this end. Well, I hope that was a help to you. This is such a great concept if you want to take your hymn playing and instantly take it from sounding basic to sounding like professional gospel piano. Click the link down in the description and get these lesson sheets. You can get the walking bass lines that I've got notated there, and also the sheet for And Can It Be with the chords, and start practicing putting these in and using these different variations of these left-hand walking bass patterns. You'll really enjoy how this sounds in your hymn playing. If this was a help to you, hit the like button right now, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Leave me a comment and let me know what you'd like to learn next, and I'll see you in the next video.